Welcome to Life Without Limits, a show for online coaches, course creators, and community builders who want to design businesses that support the lifestyle of their dreams. My name is Michael Osner, and this show is all about one simple idea. What's possible when you align your business with your deepest values and create true personal, financial, and time freedom? Now, for our very first episode, I could not think of a better guest than the man who literally changed the trajectory of my entire life. That is Bill O'Hanlon. Bill has authored over 40 books, and he made a transformation that mirrors exactly what the show is about. He went from being successful but burnt out as a speaker, traveling constantly, working nonstop, making great money, but having no time freedom. He took that and he was able to build a scalable online business that gave him back his life. And here's why this conversation is so personal for me. Bill is my mentor, and he's the reason why I'm here today with multiple seven-figure online businesses instead of still grinding it out as a musician. Now, back in 2017, I was a musician with over 2,000 placements of my own original songs in TV and film, but I was trapped in this time for money model. I was constantly hustling. I was always working. If I wasn't in the studio, I was out touring, and I really had very few scalable systems. And during a recording session, Bill saw a PDF that I had written. Now, this was something that I had just thrown together to give to the musicians who were constantly asking me the same questions about sync licensing. And when he saw that, he looked at me and he said 5 words that completely changed everything. He said, "Michael, you should do a course." Now, I resisted, of course. I'm a musician. I'm not a course creator. What would other people think? But like a great mentor, Bill just kept encouraging me. And a number of months later, I eventually listened. Now, that little PDF became a lead magnet that brought in over 60,000 people to my world. That course became Master Music Licensing, and within 22 months, I generated over $1 million in revenue while working fewer hours than ever before. But Bill's impact on my life goes way deeper than just business strategy. He showed me what's possible when you stop trading time for money and start building systems that serve your life instead of consume your life. And in today's conversation, you're going to hear Bill's incredible transformation story, how he went from constantly being on the road, making great money, but sacrificing his relationships and his personal life to building an online business that gave him the freedom to live life on his terms. We're going to dive deep into the psychology of why most content strategies fail. We're going to talk about the compound effect of consistent online business building and why Bill believes that we are living in the greatest wealth transfer in human history. But most importantly, you're going to hear the mindset shifts that separate entrepreneurs who build businesses that own them from the entrepreneurs who build businesses that free them. And this is exactly what Life Without Limits is about, showing you what's possible when you design your business around your life, not the other way around. So, whether you're just starting your online journey or you're already successful but you feel trapped by your own success, this conversation is going to show you a different path forward. I think you're going to really love this episode, so let's dive in. When we met, I think you had written like 35 or 36 books, or you were somewhere in that range.
That's good memory. 36 books. That's right.
And then, so you had a big speaking career, and then I remember you shared with me that one of your coaches said, "Bill, you gotta go online." And then once you went online, it completely changed your life. I'd love for you to share that story.
Well, I'll start back a little farther. I was a psychotherapist and I had a passion for psychotherapy, but I also was upset about the field of psychotherapy because it was so focused on what was wrong with people, all about diagnosis and pathology and trauma and everything that had messed people up and was broken about people. And so I started speaking about a different approach. I was a shy guy, but I overcame my shyness because I was so passionate about this thing. And I started going around and speaking in my local area, then in my region, then nationally, and then internationally. That's a long story. But basically, it started to happen, and people said, "Where's your books?" And I go, "I don't have a book. I don't know how to write a book." But After a while, I started having books. And then once I did one book, it got easier to do the next one. And yeah, by the time I met you, I had 36 books. And I was in great demand as a speaker, which was great in a certain way. But it's a tough lifestyle. It's like being a touring musician, like you were. And that is, you're gone a lot. It's hard to maintain romantic relationships, family relationships, friend relationships because you're gone all the time. And it's a great life. It's a cool life, but it's quite disruptive to your everyday life. And
Right.
so I just got to a point where I was making a lot of money, but I didn't handle money well. So I was always still in debt. It's like, I figured, okay, I'll just die in debt and I'll buy lots of nice stuff on the way. That's it. And so but I got to that point where I went through a divorce, my relationship fell apart, and I was like, I have this beautiful house I hardly ever live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I love my work. I really do love it. I'm passionate about it, but I do not want to work this much. And so I actually I read The 4 Hour Work Week.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was talking about automating and doing online stuff. So I thought, okay, I got to learn this online stuff. And I told a friend of mine, you got to learn this online stuff too. And she went out and bought a $2,000 internet marketing course, and I bought the $200 internet marketing course. And within a couple of years, she was making $100,000
Yeah.
in online stuff. I said, I read this stuff. I got these little courses. She goes, Bill, you're not serious about it. You really need to get serious. So she had gone to a couple of programs that were pretty intensive live programs. And she dragged me the first two, and they were terrible. I mean, I hated every bit of them. The guys were sleazy and braggy. I
Yeah.
was like, and then she brought me to the third one, which is a guy named Jeff Walker, if I've
Yeah.
told you about. He had a product launch formula thing. The formula was kind of cool, but there were people that were kind of clueless, not very technical, that were making a lot of money, and he was making a lot of money. And plus, he was a humble, sweet, kind guy full of integrity. I was like, that's my guy. I got to learn this stuff. It took me a couple of years to learn it, and he mentored me and coached me, and I joined his mastermind group and paid a boatload of money to learn this stuff, which was great.
Mhm.
But it took me a couple of years. And the first time I did a major launch, well, I did a small launch, just a test launch, and I made like $10,000. That was pretty good, but I was making $6,000 a day, so that wasn't going to move the needle for me. Then I did a bigger launch just to my own list, and it was like $90,000. That was very good, but I didn't know if I could count on that. And then
Mhm.
I did a launch with affiliates, and it was $234,000. And I
Mm.
was like, what? And it was in a week. I was
Yeah.
like, what? I'd heard these stories, but I was like, but not me.
Hmm.
And that moved the needle for me. And
Yeah.
then when I was able to do it the second and the third time, a couple $100,000, not all that's profit. You have to give some to your affiliates, and there are some costs of setting it all up. But all of a sudden, I was making more money than I could spend. So I was
Hmm.
getting out of debt. So over the next couple of years, I did some of those online courses and launches, and I paid off all my debt. I paid off my house. I just paid off everything, and I saved enough money that if I had lived frugally the rest of my life and not overspent and, didn't go wild, I could last the rest of my life without working for money again. And I was like, whoa. And then, of course, because I was a teacher, because I love to go out and teach workshops, I wanted to tell everybody about it. And we had lunch, and we got to know each other in a funny way. I don't know if we'll go into that story, but we got to know each other in a funny way because you played guitar on one of my tracks, because I transitioned into being a songwriter by that point, because I loved it. And I saw self-help books in your living room, and we started a conversation because I'd written some self-help books, and we got to know each other. And you told me something, which is, I think, one of the keys to the thing is you said, well, I've had a lot of success doing sync stuff, and I have a four-part, you know,
4-step process. Yeah.
system for doing this. And I said, and you said, I'm thinking of writing a book about it. I said, well, that's great. You can write the book, but you should do an online course, because as soon as you have a system, other people can learn it. If you just say, I've had a lot of success, but you don't know how to help other people do it, or how to put it in a coherent way, that's when you need an online course. When you've got that worked out, you not only have done the thing and you know how to do it, but you know how to tell other people to do it in a way that's accessible. That 4 step, and I'm like, okay, tell me those 4 steps because I wanted to do a little sing too, but and sync music. But that it was for me, and that's one of my superpowers. I have a brain that comes up with outlines and systems very easily. I just don't know why. I have ideas about why, but I have that. And if you can either do that or find somebody to help you do it if you're not good at that system stuff, find a system, create a system that's unique to you and that helps people get access to the stuff you know how to do and put it online and then find a great marketing method, which you do and I do. And for me, that was the beginning of a life of freedom. I heard Tony Robbins say one time, true
Yeah.
freedom is doing what you want to do when you want to do it with the people you want to do it with.
Right.
Every time you have a job, you got to work with some people you do not like or do not get along with or don't respect. If you're working with yourself, you can choose who you have around. And sometimes you make the wrong choice and you're working with somebody who's a pain in the butt, or you partner with somebody who's not so great.
Mhm.
But you can jettison them pretty quickly, relatively quickly. You can make different arrangements and only work with the people you like and only do the stuff that has integrity for you, that you love.
I think so often of how fortunate I am to have played on that one session for you because, we have these milestones and these events that happen in our lives, right? That are life changing. One of the earlier ones for me was going out to a conference when I was going to a trade school, an engineering trade school in Florida to learn recording. Towards the end of my year there, I went out to a conference in San Francisco with a couple other friends from school. It was called the AES, Audio Engineering Society, their yearly convention. It wasn't really something I was heavily interested in. I didn't really want to be an engineer per se, but I was interested in the recording process. But I went out and took the leap and went out and went to this conference. And while I was there, I ended up sitting in on a particular session with a bunch of producers. Bruce Swedien, who did Michael Jackson, Bob Clearmountain, Bob Rock, who, Metallica and Motley Crue and a lot of those groups. And he engineered Bon Jovi's biggest hits back when he was an engineer. And so I wanted to hear what these guys had to say. And I ended up sitting next to this individual who had a tag that said Franklin, Tennessee on his badge. And I had, like a week or two prior, had just gotten an apartment in Franklin. I hadn't moved there yet, but I'd secured it because I was graduating in like a month or something like that. And so I asked him, I said, so you live in Franklin? And it turns out he's a multi-Grammy winning engineer, and we became great friends. And he was my first in when I moved to town. That was a life-changing event for me on my musical path. And then the other life-changing event was playing on a session for you, and the conversation that we had during our break, specifically about, personal development. And you were over at my studio, so you saw a lot of the books that I had and I was reading at that time. This is 2017. And, that was, I think, like a Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday. And when you left, you gave me a book. You gave me your book, Do One Thing Different, which is the book that you were on Oprah for. And I left that night to go do a run of 3 shows in the Northeast. So while we were on our bus over the next couple of days, I was just reading through the book. And when I got back on Sunday, I think it was Sunday night, I sent you an email. You were already back in New Mexico. And I said, hey, I'd love to talk to you about some things. And you came back into town a couple weeks later and we had lunch, and it turned into like a 4.5 hour lunch. And I think 3 months later, my program was done, and started the process of putting it out there in such a short amount of time. Implementing and applying everything to build an online business completely changed every aspect of our lives. And it really is amazing that it came from one little conversation, completely unexpected during a recording session.
Well, I'll say this too. Very few people implement like you do. One. Number two, when you got it, you were on fire for it. And when I talked to you first, you were like, you were doing music and you were doing some real estate stuff. and you're like, I just don't know, I'm not sure, and you were quite sure your direction. As soon as you locked onto this, you were alive and excited and motivated, reading books,
Oh yeah.
going to programs, purchasing programs, because you knew what the direction was for you. And that was true for me. I saw blue sky ahead of me, freedom, time freedom, money freedom, geographical freedom,
Hmm.
where I could be anywhere in the world and I could still make money. I wouldn't have to be stressed about money or working or whatever. And there's a certain meaning to helping other people too. I mean, when I was a therapist, I had that kind of meaning. And when I taught, I had that kind of meaning. When I wrote books, I did, but doing online stuff. So I would say some of the same kind of things I said to you, to 100 other people, and only 3 out of that 100 actually acted on it, implemented in a serious way,
Yeah.
and changed their lives. Some people did some stuff and actually made some money, but it wasn't life-changing stuff. So I think you've got to be the kind of person who locks on and is willing to learn new things and implement and fall on your face and then get up and try it again and make some mistakes and get it righter and righter and righter
Right.
until you get there. But the meaning part still means a lot to me, that I'm helping other people while I'm earning some good money and, and having some nice security for me and my family and my loved ones.
So that's the thing that is a little tough about the online space that I think leads to burnout a lot, is that there's so much potential. And when you get into it and you start surrounding yourself with others who are crushing it, I mean, they're making millions of dollars a month. And you said you see blue skies ahead of you. I mean, I totally saw that too. Is immediately once I got into this and got the ball rolling, I realized that this is literally an infinite world. The income we can make it's limitless, right?
Limitless.
Literally is limitless. And so we get caught up in that. And I have, this is a common thing that comes up with a lot of other folks who I talk to in this space, is they start going down these paths of just trying to keep up with the big gurus, right? Who are just making so much money. And then before you know it, you're building a business with multiple employees. You're bringing in all these various teams, you're scaling up. And this business that you initially created to get the time freedom and the personal freedom and the financial freedom now becomes this business that is fully taking up all of your time.
You have a lot of obligation to other people, so you can't kind of scale down because you've hired other people, their income depending on you. You
Yeah.
have to keep the machine going. That is a challenge, I think, and that is the next challenge. The first challenge is to get there and make enough money and have this cool thing. And then the next one is to figure out how to manage yourself within that. I have a story I want to tell you.
Please.
I heard the story a while ago that Kurt Vonnegut, novelist, was in New York in the Hamptons,
Mm.
and he was at a party to which he'd been invited and by some hedge fund billionaire. And he and Joseph Heller, who wrote Catch 22, was also a novelist, went to the party together. And they walk in, and the front hall is bigger than both of their houses combined. I mean, it's just massive. And they're looking at all this wealth that this hedge fund manager, Kurt Vonnegut, says, like, aren't you a little jealous that this guy, has all this money, and Joseph Heller said, no, I'm not jealous at all. He goes, come on, Joe, tell the truth. You're jealous. This guy has a lot more money than either of us has. And we're successful novelists. He said, no, because we have something, I have something that he doesn't have. He goes, what could you possibly have that this guy doesn't have? He said, I know the meaning of enough. Like for me, part of my goal was to have that time freedom and to have time for my friends, my loved ones, and my own self care and health, and to pursue things that weren't money making things that I just loved, that I just love doing. So I think it's that balance. I mean, it's easy to say once you have enough money, that it's okay then to pursue time and meaning, time, freedom, and meaning. But that was important to me and still is important to me.
So right now, you spend a lot of your time writing songs.
I do. What happened for me was my calendar was so full with obligations, family, personal, but also mostly career obligations. And I would look at my iCal, and every day was filled with appointments and tasks. And when I went through this change and I did this online stuff, I started to turn down speaking invitations. So I was booked up a couple of years ahead. Took me a couple of years to get out of that. I was traveling 3 or 4 times a month. I was traveling to Japan and China and South America and Europe and Canada and all over the United States. And so I started to turn that down and I just raised my fees to such a massive amount that I got fewer invitations, which was fine with me because I was putting my work online. That was all right. But it took a while. And all of a sudden, one day I look and I don't have anything scheduled except like a doctor's appointment or a dentist's appointment for
Yeah.
a month. I have nothing on my iCal. And I'm like, that to me was exciting because
Yeah.
I love to work. I don't have any problem working. And I thought, well, now I'm getting a little bored. Like I don't have anything that's that challenging. I mastered the online stuff. I know how to write a book. That's easy for me at this point after 40 of them or whatever. And I've always wanted to be a songwriter. I always wanted to be a songwriter. I was a singer-songwriter when I was younger. Now I don't want to be a singer-songwriter because I don't want to be an artist because I don't want to go on the road again.
Mhm.
But I'd like to be a songwriter and see if I could just play that game of, can I do this at a professional level and get my songs recorded? Get to be on Billboard charts, get stuff in movies and TV and commercials, and write songs that are good enough, not just that my family loves, but actually professionals or people in the industry would love and want.
Mhm.
And so I thought, I'm going to play this new game. I don't have to play it for money anymore, which is good because being a songwriter is challenging. But I wanted to do that. And again, because it gives me such joy. Music, I know for you too, gives you such great joy. I mean, there's nothing like that to me. I love it. So I went into it and it's been 9 years. They say in Nashville, they say it's a 10-year town. That's about how long it takes to really master it and make the relationships and learn what you need to learn
Mhm.
to do it really professionally. So I have 220, I've written over 2,000 songs, 2,200 songs, and I have 221 of them have been cut. And I have a bunch in TV and movies and commercials. And so I'm playing this game and having a great time, partly because I don't have to play it for money. I feel bad for my songwriter friends who don't have money and are driving Uber and Lyft and,
Yeah.
bartenders and waiters and waitresses. That's a tough life because you're trying to squeeze your music into that little, hours that you have that you're not exhausted.
Mhm.
And I get to do it full time. So last year I wrote 385 songs, almost one a day. So it's
Mhm.
pretty, pretty amazing. And being in TV and movies is great.
Yeah.
Being on commercials is great. Your music is out there being heard by thousands, maybe
Oh,
millions.
millions, millions.
Yeah,
Your
often
music
millions.
is getting heard by more people on TV and in film
Well,
than it ever would have gotten heard on the radio stations.
sure. That Love in Tahiti, that little movie where we had a
Yeah.
song about, half of our song was in it, maybe two-thirds.
Mhm.
It gets Shazammed all the time, and we're up to 1 million streams, with that song, just that song, because people will Shazam it when they hear it in the movie. So that's such a cool thing to think. When I went into this, if you told me 1 million people are going to hear your song sometime, I'm like, that would be the dream.
Yeah.
But it's cool to think 1 million people have heard
Yeah.
something that I wrote. I mean, I just think that's a kick. That is a cool thing.
So, what would you say as a solopreneur when you're building your business and getting off the road, building the courses and learning how to do master classes and webinars and all that, and writing copy and building out funnels and stuff. What would you say was the biggest challenge that you encountered through that process?
The marketing was the hardest part for me, partly because I'm not that technical. I have to teach myself technical stuff. And, that's what I spent a lot of my time learning is how to effectively communicate in a compelling way that would invite people to what I had, which I knew was valuable. I mean, I knew I had valuable stuff. I had already gone out and taught it, and it had changed people's lives. So I knew I had good stuff, but getting that message to somebody in a compelling way that doesn't seem salesy or sleazy or whatever, it's just the trying to get them to know what was available in a compelling way and to pull them in. So once they got in there, I'd get the feedback. This is great. This has changed my life. It's great. But the marketing was the hardest part for me. And that's what I spent a lot of my, and I know you did too,
Mhm.
just learning from those people who could bring out the best in me
Yeah.
and show me how to do. I went to years ago, I was a therapist. I went to a marketing presentation at a large therapy conference. And the woman said, I know all you therapists are freaked out about marketing. It seems like you're manipulating people. She said, all marketing is becoming visible and telling people who you are and inviting them in a compelling way to what you have to offer. And I was like, oh, I can do that. That doesn't seem sleazy or salesy to me. And that's what I'm about. But to do that, it's like trying to be yourself as a musician. It's hard to find your voice because you're imitating everybody who you admire at
Yeah.
first. But after a while, your own voice starts to emerge. And when it does, you can be more yourself and be really charismatic and attractive to people when they're in the market for something that you have to offer. I want to be so compelling that they go, I've got to take this guy's thing
Yeah.
because he knows something I need to know and he can help me get to my dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the challenge for me. It was the marketing part was the biggest challenge. There were challenges all through it, but the marketing was the hardest for me.
I would even dive in further and say that marketing is sharing with others how you can solve their problems easier and faster than anyone else, how you can remove their pain and sticking points, help them overcome hurdles so that they can have those life-changing events. How did you approach your business when it came to the transformation? Because obviously your whole foundation of what you did was transforming people in your career before you even got online.
Well, it's interesting because I did several different kinds of online courses because I'd written a number of books, over 30 books by the time I met you. The obvious course for me to do is how to write a book and get it published in record time. I was on Oprah and I had pretty good success with my writing. And I wasn't a natural writer, which made me the perfect person to teach it because some people are just they just like seem to spring from the wound, amazing writer. I wasn't one of those people. I had to learn to write and also learn all about the public. I knew no one who'd published a book, really.
Mhm.
Very few people who published a book. I met a couple of people, but I didn't know them well. And so that was the first one. And then looking back, it's been over 500 books that I've coached into publication. I mean, come on, like what? One of those books that somebody might have read could change their lives. I mean, you talk about a ripple effect.
Yeah.
I love that. So, yes, that transformation. And one of the things that I learned was that transformation. It wasn't just, I can help you do this thing. This can change your life. Having a book out could change your life. Having an online course could change your life. It's not just the thing itself, like having a book published, which is cool. It's what changes. People started to talk to me and look at me differently once I had a book out. I became an expert in certain things. So learning how to offer and deliver that transformation, what both of us did with our lives when we learned online stuff, it changed my entire life. It didn't just give me money or, a good feeling. It changed my entire life. That transformation that you can get from learning and implementing something that can change your life is amazing. It's an incredible thing to offer to people, but to learn how to articulate that, not just, I can teach you how to write a book. I can teach you how to write a book that can change your life, that can change your identity, can change your reputation, can change your income, can give passive income so you don't have to work all the time, can change other people's lives. I mean, those promises that we learn to make to transform people's lives are the key to the higher level success to me, because you're promising not just an outcome, but a shift in life.
Yeah, it's also the butterfly effect. It affects one person's life and then it goes on to affect other people's lives. And, it comes back to what I think about here. I mean, we're just so thankful, my wife and I, and of course now we have a little baby boy. We would have nothing like this had it not been for a simple conversation that you started with me during a break on a recording session. And it's so funny to think of that journey and how short of time it's been. We're about 7.5 years, not even 8 years. So 7.5 years later, the dramatic difference that short conversation had, and how the ripple effects of it, not only just, obviously for us, but even with the business that I've built, and then how I've been able to go help other people. And for me, one of the most fulfilling things, I keep a folder. I have a purple folder that I keep anytime someone sends me a really nice email of, gosh, it's full of so many emails from people who are like, I got to thank you for your program. It's completely changed my life. This happened and it changed this, and I was able to quit my job and we were able to buy a house and blah, 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 blah. And I think this is just insane from a program.
What a privilege to be able to influence people in that way. There's so much in the world that can tear you down and undermine you and hurt you and frustrate you, and to be part of something that moves people forward in the direction of their dreams and their joys and their freedom. That's
Yeah.
nothing like that. Such a cool thing. And I'll say I have this lifestyle. We didn't even talk about this, but people ask me, where do you live? And I go, well, I'm geographically fluid. I live on an island in the Caribbean for 4.5 months every year. I have a house down there. And then I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, beautiful place. I'm in my Santa Fe studio at this moment. And then I have a place that I rent in Nashville. So I'm geographically fluid. And so, again, we were talking about that freedom to be wherever you need to be. And this is my favorite time of year in Santa Fe. It's beautiful weather. I sit out in my garden and I read 3 books a week. I know you're a big reader too. I read 3 books a week, and I play guitar and I write songs three or 4 times a week. I'm trying to limit myself these days 'cause I got a little crazy busy last year. And so, yeah, 3 or 4 times a week, I'm on sessions writing songs and just loving my life. And I'm no spring chicken. I've been around for a bunch of decades, and I'm more alive and more happy and more excited than I've been forever.
That is awesome. Bill, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm always, always, always inspired every time I talk to you. And
That's great.
I've been very, very blessed to have had a great mentor early in my music career who got me going in the music space. And I'm beyond blessed to have had an unbelievable mentor in you who helped me pivot into a whole new world that just completely changed so much for me, for my family, and has been personally the most fulfilling venture I've gone on, just because of the impact it's been able to make on others. So this has been a great
I
conversation.
treasure our relationship, and I planted a little seed, but you nurtured it and grew it to something that I couldn't even ever anticipated. You've done so well. I'm so excited for the life that you've created with your family and for other people, the contributions you've made. So I feel happy to be a small part of that.